Hey vidIQ team, I noticed clear dips in audience retention on my video. Screenshot attached. They have a screenshot of the retention graph. If a section has a big drop, does that mean it's safe to trim it out in YouTube Studio? Since many viewers skip these parts, would cutting them improve watch time and engagement? Appreciate your insights. Here's an interesting story. This is something that I had kind of played around with and talked to other creators with a couple of years ago when I found out that Mr. Beast was doing this. I don't know if he still does it. He was going into the studio and editing out different parts that had drops in retention to make a better overall video. And potentially that could work. I think the problem is when you're using the YouTube Studio, the ability to edit things precisely is a little bit hard, but more importantly, it's just an edit you can't add. So it might take the context out of something. So you might take something out and then all of a sudden you go from one jump to another and it doesn't make any sense. So now you've created a new potential dip in your retention. So depending on what it is, if it's like an intro that's long, sure, take that out because probably that's a problem. If the outro is really long, maybe. Now the problem with that is like if you have a really good call to action, maybe you're taking out the wrong part, but maybe. If it's things in the middle, you got to look at it and go, okay, is this going to make any sense anymore? So much like everything, Rob, the answer is kind of like maybe experiment. Like it really is, because there is a scenario by which you could use this to kind of make your retention better. And for the most part, it's when you have a really bad intro and you need to get rid of the intro. What are your thoughts on this?
Can you imagine trying to compartmentalize each section of the video so that you could trim it out if it didn't work? That would be
wild.
It would be a challenge. I think, again, there's a question of how much do you care about this video once it's live and it's been on the channel for a couple of weeks and you've had an opportunity to digest this audience retention. Would it be better to take the learnings from that video's AVD graph and apply it to your next video, or start going in and slicing and dicing an existing video? My guess is, Travis, right? What would happen is that if your video was performing really well and it was getting tons of views, but the average view duration was low, you probably wouldn't make any changes, would you? Just leave it alone.
Right.
If a video is performing really badly, the average view duration is low, you can go in and start making changes to the edit. Is it gonna all of a sudden resurrect that video? Probably unlikely, but it might be worth doing for you to test. Now, what you'd have to do is say, right, on, let's say, February the 7th, I'm gonna make these editing changes, and then I'm gonna track the audience view duration after February the 7th. The views aren't really important unless all of a sudden the video takes off. All I'm interested in is whether or not that trim really did make a big difference. And then again, apply it to the next video. That's the important thing. It's learning from your previous mistakes and not making them again going forward. The editor does make it easy to do this, doesn't it, Travis? Like, you could probably make these changes in like 5-10 minutes if you wanted to.
I think what you said there is really important. It's to take this information and be able to use it in future videos, not just to try to gussy up an old video. And I think it's super important to remember that none of this is a guarantee. Like, it might actually make things worse. You never really know. But what we're trying to do when we look at something like a retention graph is figure out when people kind of tune out. I love working on retention graphs. I think they're really fascinating and interesting, and it's a great way to kind of make your videos, your future videos, better by looking at the retention graph and improving upon it. And this is a way to do something with a video that exists on YouTube by taking out the bad parts. But ultimately, the thing that you should be taking away from this is exactly what Rob said. What did I do in this video that I need to be doing either better or less of in the future video so that my retention is just plain better to begin with? And oftentimes, like I said in the beginning, it's usually an intro. But in this particular case, with this particular picture, there's multiple kind of drops and they're just curious. If I just take these parts out, the one that makes the most sense to me is the one that's at the very end, where there's just a long segment at the end where the outro must just be something people aren't interested in anymore. Chop that off, your retention will go up. Now, will that make it perform better? That is not a guarantee, but your metrics will look better.
I'm guessing at the end point as well, there's probably only maybe like 30 to 40% still watching the video at that point.
Yeah,
so
actually less than that. Yeah.
You're kind of saving a small amount. And again, thinking big picture, is it a slight dip in 5% of your audience 3 minutes into a video that's a problem, or your title and thumbnail? In which case, you can change your title and thumbnail infinite times, whereas you make an editorial change, that's it, it's gone. You've removed it from the content and you can't put it back. So again, you've got to try and weigh up what's the most valuable change I can make to this video if I'm trying to bring it back from the dead.
So when you look at this from a perspective of a potential hack to make an old video perform, it's absolutely possible. Totally could work. But much like everything on YouTube, nothing is guaranteed. So there's your answer.
Thanks for watching. Nothing's guaranteed.
Watch one of our other videos.